Hello everyone, this is Gary D. Tonicourt from MoreThanASnapshot.com. Today I want to come to you with the week number 2 challenge, and it's going to be sort of a continuation of last week's, where last week we were talking about how I wanted you to write down what your impressions are of yourself as a photographer, thinking about what elements do you have to your style? So we said, do you shoot portraits or landscapes or wildlife or people or vacations or, what exactly is it that you like to shoot? And then we wanted to look a little deeper into what were the main focal lengths you use for lenses. Do you use natural light? Do you use artificial light? Do you like color? Do you like black and white? All those kinds of things. And you were sort of building a little profile of yourself as a photographer. So now we want to see just how accurate you were. And one way you can do that is just by looking through your photos, and we're roughly making estimates here. It doesn't have to be an exact science. So now I want you to go to your photo collection and look through them and try to figure out by percent, by rough estimate, how many portraits do you shoot versus how many landscapes versus, all the other types of photography that you do. And then, if you want to get even more detailed, start looking at what are your most popular focal lengths. The type of camera doesn't really matter, although you could track it if you wanted to. Whereas the focal length matters more because that does affect how your photo is going to look. You could also look at your photos again to see if you shot them with natural light or if you used artificial light. You want to look, how do you tend to crop your images? Do you like a certain aspect ratio, a square, a rectangle, panorama? Do you tend to crop, or do you tend to leave them in their natural aspect ratio? All of these types of things you want to look into. What are the common themes that run through your photography? So if you have Lightroom, I can show you a little tip that might help you to go through some of these things. So let's head into Lightroom and take a look. So first, in Lightroom, under your library module in the catalog, you have a section called All Photographs, and this happens to be my laptop, so I only have a very small subset of photos here, almost 3,000 photos. If this was my desktop computer, there'd be hundreds of thousands of photos to go through, and my data would be much better from that. But anyway, when you click on All Photographs, if you make sure you're on Grid View, you will see a whole wide array of your photos. And then up near the top of the screen, there should be a filtering system. So you'll see something like text, attribute, metadata, and none. So we want to go to metadata, and you'll see things like what camera was used to shoot the photos. You might see what date they were shot. I think in this case the important one that we want to look at is the lens. So you can kind of get some idea of, if you don't know, you'll get some idea of what your most popular lens is. And as I quickly look through mine, I can see that I shot quite a few photos with my 24-105. And in this case I shot a lot of photos with my 70-200. Now, I thought that was a lens that I didn't use very much, but it's certainly in this subset of images, it is a lens that I used a lot. And then as we come down, my 400mm lens is not as popular as I thought it would have been. But I'm sure, again, if we were looking at my entire collection, that data would be very different. So there's all kinds of things that you can look at here. It doesn't just have to be a lens. You can change that here. Focal length, you can actually see the exact focal lengths that you tend to shoot at. And let's just quickly look. I see a big number here. So 200mm in this case seems to be my most common focal length. What else can we look at? You can check your images by shutter speed. So you can look if you tend to shoot with fast shutter speeds or slow shutter speeds. If you like to shoot with slow shutter speeds, you might like that motion effect. The blur, you might like that. And maybe that's part of your style. If you like a fast shutter speed, you might like that frozen in time look. Okay, aperture. Of course, aperture will tell us about depth of field. Do you tend to use a lot of wide open apertures to blow out your background, or do you tend to use a lot of closed down apertures? So here I have over 400 photos at a wide open aperture, and then as I go down around f16 I only have 100. So in this subset of images I was shooting more with wide open apertures. We can also look at your ISO speed and see what your most common ISO is. Again, this may indicate whether you like to shoot in bright conditions or darker conditions. Flash state, it'll tell you, how many times did you use a flash or not. Again, this is a good indication of are you a natural light shooter or a flash shooter. And there's all kinds of other stuff, but I think that those things were more, appropriate to figuring out something about your photography. So if you happen to have Lightroom, you can use that develop module, or actually the library module, to help you figure out a little bit more about your style. So what I'd like you to do is write another little paragraph about yourself, compare what you saw in your catalog, what you learned about yourself from looking at your photos, to what you wrote about yourself in week 1. And see if you were on the mark, or were you surprised and you were off a little bit. So again, this has been Gary D. Tonicourt from morethanasnapshot.com, and we'll see you in the next challenge.